Thank you all and welcome here to Santa Clara, now known as the Silicon Valley Central Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for coming. My name is Karen Matthews-Riddell. I am the CEO and founder of Small Business HR Services, and we offer the full suite of HR services as an outsourced solution for small to mid-sized companies. And so it's my intention and my efforts to stay on top of the labor law, which is why I like to share what's going on here in California in particular, because that's the most, California is the most dynamic of all the states in terms of getting new laws in place. Although New York is right behind us, so, and Oregon, and even in some of the southern states, they're adding more employee protection laws. But California is notorious for this. So I'm just going to do a quick overview, and I apologize in advance that some of the slides are pretty dense with information. But we'll go over that, and if you have questions, as I said, please feel free to ask. So we're going to go, and some of these, like the minimum wage, I am not diving into the city-specific minimum wage. I'll talk about Santa Clara, but that's it. Because there's so many cities in the Bay Area, and everybody has their own. And you can just see what these are. I don't think that I have to read them. There's and you can see at the bottom of this slide, the mandatory retirement savings, also known as CalSavers. A lot of people do not know about this one, so we'll spend a little time on that. So, state minimum wage. And this is tiered so that the idea is not to hamstring very small businesses. So 25 or less is $12 an hour. 26 and more employees is $13 an hour. And of course, California, this is not citywide. So keep in mind that if you have an employee, say for example that you're located in Campbell. Campbell does not have their own city minimum wage. But if you have an employee that's works on site, say in San Jose, 2 or more hours a week, you must pay them the minimum wage of that city, wherever they're working at. And that can be kind of complicated if you have a lot of people that are in the field.
Karen, that's 2 hours minimum, whether they're whether they're a part-time or a full-time employee?
Yes. So unless I say otherwise, all the labor laws apply to employees of any size, and the minimum wage applies to any size company and any status, whether they're full-time, part-time, seasonal, temporary.
What if you have somebody working in Colorado and comes out here for 2 or more hours? Is the California minimum wage?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions about that? Good questions, Joe. Thank you. Let's see here. Okay, so I don't know, a lot of people are unaware of the exempt employee. When I say exempt, I mean exempt from overtime, and other like everyday language, that means you're salaried employees. So if you have salaried employees, they have to, the definition has been changed for this year because they have to receive a minimum salary that's listed on this chart. So if you have 25 or less employees, your exempt employees must, for 2020, must be earning a minimum of $29,920. Okay?
That says 49.
Did I say? Oh, I'm sorry, 49,920. I apologize. 49,920. That's actually in the definition given by the state of California for exempt employees. So, and what's that's based on? That's based on the California minimum wage. So as the California minimum wage goes up, that's what they do is they take that number, they double it, so times 2. So for 25 and less, it's $24 an hour. That's what it comes out to. But for exempt employees, they're not paid by the hour. So if you're paying them by the hour, that's incorrect. And by the way, you cannot have a part-time exempt employee. They have to have their salary must be based on a 2,080 hour per year salary, unless you have specialties. And that's a very specific, high earners. If you have software programmers, they have to have a certain wage. You have other high earners like physicians, surgeons, dentists. They have a different level that they minimum. But anybody here in a dental office, for example, or medical office? Okay, so they have their own minimum wage, and that goes up. Whenever the California minimum wage goes up, that goes up as well. And I don't have the details with me on that, but if you need additional help with that, I'm happy to help. Yes?
What about if you have a family business and the child's working in the business? Does these minimum wage things apply to them?
Yes. Okay, so this exempt, though, doesn't usually apply to a child.
Mm-hmm.
They would be paid on an hourly basis usually, right?
But they have to conform.
Yes, they used to have a different tier for teenagers, youth workers, that they would have a different minimum wage. They don't have that anymore.
So the 54,000 though, is that based, what hourly term is that based? Is it based on 8 hours, 10 hours?
Okay, so that's for salaried employees.
Right.
So that's a salaried employee is exempt from overtime, and if they are truly exempt or salaried, that's this 54,000 is for those employers that have 26 or more employees.
Right.
Okay, so how they figure that out is back here, this 26 or more employees is $13 an hour. They take that $13 an hour, they double it, so that's 26 an hour times 2,080 hours a year.
Okay.
That's how they compute that. So that's how they arrive at the number, but it's still the number. So as I said, you don't pay exempt salary employees, you don't pay them by the hour. Because if you're paying them by the hour, then they're not exempt.
No, 2,080 hours a year is what
Yes, yeah, that's right. Joe?
What about on like a commission employee that's exempt, a simple sales position? Is that minimum their base, or can you go lower than that with a commission structure to reach that?
They are exempt, and so you can have there's a third classification that is not commonly talked about,
Okay.
but you can have what's called a SNE, a salaried non-exempt.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so that might be where, however, this is how that works. They can be working less hours or they can be working more hours. It's really for the benefit of the employee because they get to be paid overtime.
Yeah.
So you pay them overtime. They are not exempt from overtime.
Right, I was really more on the commission space of things. So let's say you've got an employee that's on a commission and 50% of their salary is targeted to be commission-based.
Yes.
What I didn't know is do they have to get paid the minimum plus their commission, or can their commission?
In no time can a commission or a tip in California make up the minimum wage.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, at no time. So that includes, let me finish this thought and I'll answer your question. That includes definition for exempt or for salaried. Yes, sir.
How many hours they can work when they're exempt? How many hours?
As many hours, so how the law reads is however many hours it takes for them to get their job done. So if they can get their job done in 30 hours, then they can work 30 hours and they still get the same pay. If they work 60 hours, they still get the same pay. And they're exempt from overtime. And so that's what that means, exempt from overtime and for the wage and hour laws, which means break times, lunch times, all of that. They're exempt from having to clock in, clock out. In fact, you don't want them to do that because if you do, you're going to have a hard time proving that they are an exempt employee, that probably they are non-exempt and subject to overtime. And so you have to be very careful about that. Yes. Hi.
Can you hire part-time people only? Like
Yes.
full-time?
Yes.
That's okay, 20, minimum wage, 20 hours a month. It doesn't have to be full-time. You can have several part-time employees as long as it's under 25 people. Is that okay?
Oh, here's the thing with, that's a good question. Victoria, so thank you for asking. You can, part-time people, full-time people, it doesn't matter. There's no restriction by law on how many full-time, part-time you can have. I have a staff of 3 right now, and they're all part-time.
But then you don't have to pay them 49,000.
No, that's for exempt. That's only for if you have salary.
Oh,
Okay, so that's only salaried. Yeah, that's so. I'm using the legal terminology here, which is in the law. So exempt is salaried.
okay.
Okay, non-exempt, that means they're not exempt from overtime and all the wage and hour requirements. Okay, any other questions about that? So we had a minor adjustment on the IRS mileage reimbursement. So now the IRS has dropped it down, I think it's 1 cent per mile. So,
For
and,
what year?
pardon me?
For this year?
Yes.
It says 2018.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's an error. That's a typo on
okay.
my part. So it's 2020.
And it's
So-
57.5 cents.
It's 57.5 cents per mile reimbursement.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's new this year. So I apologize for the error, the typo there. And also, a lot of times employers don't know that they are not required to reimburse for the full IRS rate. You do not have to. You can if you want to, because it helps with employee retention and those kinds of things. Personally, I suggest to my clients 40 cents a mile is plenty of reimbursement for mileage. Now, if you're already, here's the caveat though. If you're already been reimbursing your employees at the full IRS rate, they're probably going to be very unhappy if you drop that rate. I'm just saying.
Question here.
Yes,
One more question with the previous topic.
sure.
The exempt employee has to have a job description, right?
Well, it's always helpful that, job descriptions are not required by law. However, it's a best practice because if there's ever a performance issue, you need to have something objective that you have your employee reading and understand what job that they are signed up for.
Can I help clarify? I
Yeah.
think you're asking, what determines an hourly from an exempt? It's not job description. There's certain requirements in here.
Oh, okay. Is that what you're
That's your
asking?
question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what determines an hourly from an exempt?
Oh.
And how do you make the differentiation
Okay,
between
that's-
the two
yeah.
job classifications?
Thanh you, Joe.
I'm a good interpreter.
Yeah, you are. Okay, so that's a very good question. And so what distinguishes an exempt from a non-exempt? Non-exempt personnel are typically those that have to be supervised on a routine basis. They're given an assignment. Anyone can sit at their desk and do their job. Like if they didn't come in, they're absent from work. Somebody can come in and do that job. They are not highly skilled. They're not highly trained. They are just, doing, I don't want to say low level, but they're not doing a high that takes a lot of expertise or education, right? So, whereas an exempt employee, here's what the labor commissioner, how they have defined the law. The labor commissioner is going to assume that every worker you have is considered to be an employee. And of those employees, they're going to consider everyone a non-exempt employee, meaning hourly, unless you can prove otherwise. And so an exempt employee would be someone who is highly skilled, they're self-directed, they're a contributor to the business, they could be a subject matter expert would be one. They would be somebody that's that would be technical, for example. They're very highly skilled. They're trained, they may have an education, they may have a certification, anything like that. Also, people that manage people. So managers, supervisors that have people reporting to them for direction are usually classified as salaried or exempt. Okay? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Following up on that question
What we
though.
send you out,
Yes.
definitions, because you really need to look at the definition or sit down with Karen and talk about the job itself, because you don't want to mix them up.
Yeah, you really don't.
Your hand slapped really.
Yeah, you can, and there's a lot of fines and all that with that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, I think that was part of it. Is there a percentage of work that can be administrative
Yes.
versus manual? Or is there a guideline for that as far as, you're gonna be considered as a salary employee, and then you must have a certain amount of administrative responsibilities, that kind of situation, or is?
You can have that. You can actually have, and I have this with my staff, I have two pay levels, but they're because they're part-time, they're hourly, they're non-exempt. But you can have multiple tier levels, you can have multiple job titles for the same person. You can have some job duties that are considered to be exempt, and you can have other job duties like administrative kind of work that's non-exempt. So there's no, as long as you're clear, and that's where this is where the rubber hits the road is, and this is what you really must do as an employer is, if you're going to have that kind of situation that's not very like one thing, if you're going to have more than one, then it should be in writing. It needs to be in writing. And in all cases, by the way, California has put this in place in 2011. You must give your employees in writing their job title, their rate of pay, and who they work for. That has to be in writing. It's called employee notice. I forget what the number is. It's AB 1825, something like that. But it's a standard form. But it's important, though, to have that. And if you want to do that, you can. You just have to be very specific. And then that's where job descriptions would be so critical. I know of virtual assistants that have their own businesses. Yes, there are virtual assistants that I know of, because I've used them myself, that I use as a 1099 independent contractor. And they have their own business, they have other clients, and I give them the project, and I tell them what I need done. I don't tell them how to do it. And I don't manage the quality of their work. So if you have that situation, then having them as an independent contractor is totally fine.
If that person is just a student, like part-time, working as a virtual assistant, can it be 1099?
Probably not. Probably not. I mean, I don't know. I would have to sit down with you and understand exactly all the details, but probably not.
Okay, with the new rule,
Well, actually, this has been in place for a long time. So we'll go over that at a different time. I have a slide in there about that. Yes, sir.
So how does the state check to see if companies are complying with whether it's not exempt or exempt?
They look at you have to report that on your payroll. So when you send it, when the documents go into the IRS and to California to pay payroll taxes, they're paying attention to that.
Well, maybe I'm not asking the right question, but for example, there's industries like lenders, right? Some banks like Bank of America and Wells,
Yes.
they classify them as as exempt.
Yes.
No, non-exempt hourly.
Yes.
But there's no way those people can work hourly, because if they track buying homes and doing mortgages, they're working odd hours.
They track their time, because that's another requirement. If you have an hourly employee, a non-exempt, they must by law track their time. That is an absolute requirement. That is not like optional, because you can easily, and this has happened, I've seen this, I have clients that they had very small pool of staff.
Yeah.
I had one, he has 6 people working for him. He was on vacation out of country. They had 3 auditors come into his place, 3. Okay, they had OSHA, they had Department of Labor, and they had EDD, which is California Employment Department Development. Thank you. They had that. So EDD, and they wanted, the thing that they want to look at is the timekeeping and payroll records. So I'm just telling you that.
Timekeeping doesn't work, for example, because if you're a lender and you're working your regular 40 hours, and then all of a sudden at night, on Sunday night, you got 2 or 3 loans coming in because they bought a home.
Yeah.
You can't just go in and do that without
Well, you can record it. They can record it. They can record it. I mean, recording is easy, right? It can be pen and paper. It can be an Excel spreadsheet.
That doesn't constitute as work, right?
Yes, it does.
It does,
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Most
That,
banks, that's why they're being sued, right? Like Bank of America, because they don't want to do overtime, or you have to be authorized to do overtime. But by the time you get authorization, you can't process loans.
well, they have that's a problem that they have with their own internal management. So that, it's not about the timekeeping function. That's not the issue.
Yeah, so how do the government, yeah, exactly. How do they come back and say, this looks suspicious, or, you know, by your number, they can't.
Yes. So they can come in,
They do it all the time,
they,
and that's why there's so many lawsuits against banks, because
So that's the only way is to have lawsuits, right? So it's a flawed system.
well, here's the thing with that. They have what's called the Private Attorney General Act, and that's through the federal government. And they incentivize employees to rat out their employer if they're breaking the law. Because what happens is, if an employer is doing something that's not compliant, the employee can sue them and sue them on behalf of the Attorney General. And they get 25% of the fine if they win. And they get a free attorney. So, you know, I'm just saying that it's not worth it for really.
Where do you get more information on that?
Excuse me?
Where do you get more information on that?
The PAGA?
Attorney?
It's called Private Attorney General Act. It's called PAGA, P-A-G-A. Yeah, PAGA. Okay.